What's going on, guys? It's Danny from Fantasy Stock Exchange here, bringing you another installment of the weekly recap series that Bush puts out every Monday for you guys on the channel, where basically he just goes over the weekend in action in the NFL. I'm taking over for him today. He wanted to watch his Tampa Bay Buccaneers get walloped on Sunday Night Football, which I shouldn't be laughing at because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan and we're 2-7. But yeah, he not a great day for him, to say the least. But yeah, taking over for him today. Going to highlight through the top news or tidbits of each matchup just to kind of give you guys an idea or a rundown of what exactly went on in this great week 9 of action in the NFL. So buckle up. And yeah, if you're watching this video, you're a fan of the channel, make sure you go hit that subscribe button. It helps us a ton. We're currently closing in at 2.1 thousand subscribers. Appreciate all of y'all. And yeah, if at any point in this video you feel so inclined, you're enjoying the content, you're liking what you're hearing, you're liking me just talk random crap about football, to be quite honest, because at the end of the day here, we're all degenerates. We all love football. That's why we're here. Make sure you go hit that like button and comment down below what your thoughts are on this great week in action. But before we start, hit the intro. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're going to go through every single matchup this week prior to the Monday Night Football matchup between the New England Patriots and the New York Jets, just to kind of give you a breakdown or a rundown what exactly happened in this fine week of football. So to start it off, again, the teams that were on bye this week, just to kind of outline them for you guys. If you're a fan of one of these teams, obviously you know that your team was not in action, so don't really expect any news on them. But just to outline it again, the Cincinnati Bengals, Cleveland Browns, Los Angeles Rams, and Philadelphia Eagles were all on bye this week. So starting off with the first matchup of the week, we're going to be talking about the Packers and 49ers. Obviously, we saw this game on Thursday Night Football. If you guys were in our live stream on Sunday morning, we basically talked about this matchup a bit. But I'm just going to go over the main, if you will, points of the matchup. Okay. So looking at the box score, the Green Bay Packers defeated the San Francisco 49ers by a score of 34-3 or 34-17. And to be quite honest, I mean, this game was pretty much over by the fourth quarter. I mean, the Packers were up 31-3. They're really establishing themselves as the dominant team in this matchup. So, I mean, the Niners got a couple garbage time touchdowns, one on the last drive to say the least, but looking at the overall box score of this game, what exactly happened? I mean, Aaron Rodgers was just absolutely on fire in this one. If you look at his line of 25 completions on 31 attempts, 304 passing yards, and 4 touchdowns to no interceptions. I mean, his QBR of 98.8 just kind of dictates how unstoppable he was in this game against a depleted Niners defense. And on the other side, we had Nick Mullins completing 22 for 35 for 291 with 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Not a terrible game, to say the least, but definitely not something you would anticipate or be looking forward to if you did start him in your fantasy football lineup. So looking at the main skill players of this matchup, like who really contributed for you. So we actually did see a development last second in this game. Aaron Jones actually did play after being expected to be out. So he returned to action after missing the last couple of weeks to 15 rushing attempts for 58 rushing yards. And in the receiving game, actually caught 5 passes for 21 receiving yards. So overall, not a terrible game. Again, 79 yards from scrimmage, 20 total touches. Not really something you were looking for if you're an Aaron Jones owner, because equating to 12.9 PPR points, or that would be 10.4 half PPR points. I mean, it's an okay day. It's probably not going to kill you, but if you have Aaron Jones, you're probably relying on him as your RB1 at this point. So definitely disappointing if you had any real expectations for him to actually fill that void for you. On the flip side, I mean, the leader of the San Francisco 49ers backfield was actually Jerick McKinnon in this one. A weird development. I mean, the Niners trying to predict who's going to lead this team in rushing, who's going to lead this team in overall snaps out of the backfield on a per week basis. It's proven to be impossible at this point. I mean, we saw JaMychal Hasty really have a good run the last couple of weeks. Obviously, when Mostert's healthy, it's been Mostert. And we did see a period of time where it was McKinnon. So these last couple of weeks, while it was Hasty, I mean, McKinnon just came out Thursday night, said, you know what, give me 76% of the snaps. Let's ball out. Okay. to the tune of 12 rushing attempts for 52 rushing yards and that rushing score at the end of the game. And in the receiving game, he actually caught 3 passes for 16 yards as well. So overall baseline 15 touches. 15 touches for 68 total yards and a touchdown. Definitely a fine game. Again, 15.8 full PPR points if you did start him in your lineup. So definitely something, again, if you were putting him in your lineup early on Thursday, definitely something you could have looked forward to with him giving that overall baseline for you. So returning on value there. Looking in the receiving game, though, there are some real big standouts in this game in terms of the receiving end. So, I mean, we got to address this first. Wide receiver from the Green Bay Packers, the wide receiver 1 on a points per game basis in fantasy football. That's that freak, number 17, Davante Adams. I mean, this guy is as consistent as they come. I actually paced out his overall stat line for the year. So on the year right now, he has 53 receptions for 675 yards and 8 receiving touchdowns. If you were to have paced out his per game numbers, if you will, per game numbers, again, keep in mind he also missed 3 games. If you were to pace out his per game numbers, he would be on pace for over 1,800 receiving yards and 21 receiving touchdowns. It's just a complete game changer having this guy in your lineup this year. What MT was last year, Davante Adams is magnified. He is basically MT with more yards and more touchdowns. It's unparalleled to how dominant Davante Adams has been. And especially his chemistry with Aaron Rodgers being the sole provider out of that receiving core. Obviously, other options in that receiving game. I mean, I mentioned Aaron Jones did have 5 receptions, 21 yards. Talking about the overall receivers, Marquez Valdes-Scantling actually contributed 2 touchdowns in this game, put up a line of 2 catches for 53 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Tyler Ervin out of the backfield, another running back, 4 catches, 48 yards, and then a couple other contributors. A big disappointment of a week in Robert Tonyan. We actually saw him heavily involved in previous weeks, coming off a 79 receiving yard game. Ends up just putting up 1 catch for 5 yards on 1 target. I mean, where did that come from? He got absolutely shut down. The Niners were all over the place. I mean, you got fast-flowing linebackers on the San Francisco side, but for a guy that we really expected to emerge as a tight end 1 for the rest of the season, I mean, that is not the type of production you're looking for with Robert Tonyan. Other contributors, you're looking at Darius Shepard, 1 catch for 3 yards. Mercedes Lewis actually had 1 target, which he turned into 1 catch for 1 yard and 1 touchdown, as basically basic as it comes. And then Jay Sternberger, a guy who actually received some hype in the preseason, hasn't really come to fruition with the mini breakout, if you will, of Robert Tonyan. Just a mess. But on the San Francisco 49ers side, obviously we know they were dealing with complications in terms of injuries, in terms of COVID on their end. Again, they were without Deebo Samuel. They were without Brandon Ayuk in this one. The leader out of that group ended up being Richie James Jr., wide receiver for that team. I mean, he put up a ridiculous line. He received 13 targets out of Nick Mullins' 35 total attempts. If you just basically add that up or you even that out, this guy was receiving over a 35% target share on that team, which is just an absurd number when you think about it. He turned those 13 targets and was able to produce 9 receptions, 184 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Again, if you randomly flexed him into your lineup or you're running a showdown on Thursday and had Richie James in your lineup, I mean, you probably won some big bucks because this guy absolutely came out of nowhere with a huge performance, looked really good. Definitely someone to monitor given the status of Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk if that doesn't really clear up for them. So, again, if you're on Tuesday, you hear anything new about Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, Richie James showed that if those 2 are both out, he can definitely be a big contributor for this team. Outside of him, I mean, not much going on, but Ross Dwelly really showed that he was the more consistent tight end option out of the team. I'm going to get into Jordan Reed a little later, but 3 catches, 52 yards on 3 targets. Nothing really to write home about. Had a big 36-yard catch that really propelled those totals, but solid day. You put him in your lineup, you're definitely not disappointed with that production from your tight end slot. Already mentioned Jerick McKinnon, 3 catches for 16 yards. And then out of the receivers, we do have River Craycraft with 2 catches for 13 yards on 5 targets. JaMychal Hasty out of the backfield, 2 catches for 10 yards. Trent Taylor, 1 catch for 9 yards. Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, 1 catch for 4 yards. And then the one that I was excited about going into this game, I had this guy as a mid tight end one option going into the week because of the lack of weapons that the Niners really presented in this game. Jordan Reed, man, 1 catch for 3 yards on 2 targets, just not something you really look for as a fantasy owner from your tight end position. That is just something that infuriates you if you had any expectations for Jordan Reed. Again, because at this point he's such a volatile player, you can't really be disappointed. Again, like, although I had him ranked high, I kind of take that L on myself, but disappointing. That definitely not what I or many who had them in their lineups actually expected from this game. So moving on to the next game here, we actually got the Broncos versus Falcons listed here. So if you guys can see, or you can't see, but as I'll mention again, the Falcons were able to sneak away with this one, 34-27, after almost blowing it in the fourth quarter. I mean, they had a huge lead earlier on. They were up by 21 going into the fourth quarter, and then the Broncos had a chance to win this at the end, end up closing the gap to 34-27. So if you're looking at both quarterbacks, both had productive days in the fantasy football landscape. Drew Lock was able to turn 313 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception, as well as having 47 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown in this one, returning you over 29 quarterback points on the week. Definitely something that if you were to be able to stream him in your lineup, you had him as a streamer option of the week, you're definitely happy with that performance from Drew Lock. Again, a lot of that production came late when they were coming back, but that's fantasy football for you. This quote-unquote garbage time still counts the exact same. So if you had Drew Lock in your lineup, I don't care when he got his points. He got 29 points. You're happy with that. Looking at the other end, you do have Matt Ryan. Again, as I mentioned, 284 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 pick, while also contributing a little nice 10 rushing yards for him. So not really the most mobile option, but 10 rushing yards for Matt Ryan is definitely something that, nice little added bonus. So if you're actually talking about the rushing end, again, I mentioned both their quarterback rushing yards, 47 for Drew Lock, 10 for Matt Ryan. For the Denver Broncos, we actually saw a basic split between Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon. Again, Phillip Lindsay was able to garner 8 carries for 23 yards. Melvin Gordon, 6 carries for 18 yards. And then another rusher on their team happened to be KJ Hamler with a 15-yard rush. So nothing to really desire. 103 total rushing yards from the team, and 47 of them came from the quarterback position. So overall, a disappointing day. If you have Phillip Lindsay or Melvin Gordon as even like your RB2, RB3 in some lineups, given how scarce the running back position is, that is absolutely something you're not looking for. Disappointing. At least, neither of them even really contributed in the receiving game a lot. So overall, if you have them in your lineup, you're just absolutely disappointed by that lack of production for either of them. Neither of them clearing 6 PPR points on the day. Definitely disappointing. Talking about the other end, he's going to happen. I mean, at this point, you know what's going to happen. It's going to be the most disgusting, unwatchable 20 touchdown season of the year. But man, like, Todd Gurley is just going to fall into the end zone every game. I can't explain it. I don't know why they give him the ball so much. I mean, again, this guy doesn't bust off explosive games. This guy's not efficient on the ground. This guy's averaging basically 3 yards a tote every time he touches the ball. Yet somehow every single week he's going to give you RB2 type floor because of the touchdown upside that he gives you. He's going to score a touchdown every week. It's just inevitable. Like that meme from frickin' Avengers. It's just inevitable. I mean, Todd Gurley, 19 carries, 53 rushing yards, and that rushing touchdown, as I mentioned. Again, he's not really doing much in terms of the receiving game. 2 catches for 2 yards today. Hasn't really had a total amount or a huge amount of catches overall in the year. But again, going into this game, 41.6% of his fantasy football production this year in half PPR, touchdowns. And what does he do again today? Well, if you're actually breaking it down, his yardage would equal 5.3 rushing yards. So 5.5 total yards, 6.5 in half PPR if you count the catches. So he would have had 6.5 half PPR points in terms of overall catches and yards. And that touchdown just takes a total of 12.5, so 6 more points. So overall, I mean, this guy, over 40% of his fantasy football production on the year, 8 or 9 weeks in, is touchdowns. So he's going to do it. I mean, I can't not rank him where he's going to finish, because until he doesn't score touchdowns, he is in RB2. I mean, it's just no other way to put it. Out of the contributors of the backfield, Brian Hill turned 8 carries into 24 rushing yards, and also contributed, I believe here, nothing on the receiving game. And Bilal Powell, or Brandon Powell, whatever, the receiver from the team. I think Bilal Powell was the Jets running back in the day, but Brandon Powell, 1 carry for 4 yards, and Smith was able to do one carry for 1 yard as well. Powell actually also got a 9-yard receiving touchdown. By the way, I'm going to mention Julio Jones in a bit as well. I am a Julio Jones owner in one of my leagues, and for the longest time after Ryan threw those first 2 touchdowns to Zacchaeus and Powell, I was like, oh, but is Jones going to get his? Is Jones going to get his? Is Jones going to get his? Because that's all you're thinking. With Ridley out, Hurst was fine as well, but like the Jones owners were really crying for that touchdown, and they ended up getting it at the very end. So again, we're going to get into it. Before we do that, though, I am going to mention the breakout game for the receiver position of the week, in my opinion. Jerry Jeudy, man. We talked about him as being one of the most pro-ready rookie receivers in this draft, and he delivered today. He's kind of been, if you will, the one rookie receiver that's kind of struggled this year. I mean, we saw Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, guys like that really explode onto the scene, while Jerry Jeudy was the one that was expected to be the most pro-ready. Didn't end up having that type of impact right away. But if you're talking about in this game against Atlanta Falcons, man, 7 receptions, 125 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown with a long of 41. And my favorite, 14 targets. 14 targets for Jerry Jeudy is just an absurd amount. I mean, he looked polished. He looked firm. If you guys actually saw his touchdown on the day, I mean, he absolutely put A.J. Terrell on skates. He faked the go route, put his hand up like he was going into the end zone, stopped on a dime, caught the pass, like a good 7 yards of separation on that road, and absolutely took it into the end zone. I mean, this guy looked absolutely smooth in the open field. Just a general delight to actually watch him play in this game. Talking about other options on the Broncos, we have to mention KJ Hamler on 10 targets, second leading target guy in the game for the Broncos. He turned into 6 catches for 75 receiving yards. Noah Fant, 3 for 45 line on only 3 targets. Not really something you're looking for if you're a Noah Fant owner. Tim Patrick returned from injury to the tune of 4 catches, 29 receiving yards, and a touchdown. And other contributors, we did see 5 other total catches in the game. 2 from Deshaun Hamilton, 1 from Nick Vannett, 1 from Melvin Gordon, and 1 from Albert Okwuegbunam. I'm talking about Albert Okwuegbunam. We did see him contribute in the last couple weeks, but definitely not a line. If you were, I don't know, in a spot, say you're in a dynasty league, and you had to start Albert O in a pinch, 1 catch for 7 yards is just not going to get it done for you. Talking about the other end, as I mentioned, I mean, Olamide Zacchaeus, 4 catches, 103 yards, and a touchdown on 6 total targets. We saw him fill the void for a missing Calvin Ridley in this game. Obviously, Calvin Ridley didn't practice all week, ended up missing this game. Olamide Zacchaeus stepped in. I mean, over 25 yards per catch, had a long of 51, and that touchdown. And he looked unbelievable in this game. Ended up catching a huge bomb for that touchdown. And going to mention next, tight end, Hayden Hurst. He's been a focal point of this offense. Again, we know the receiving talent that they have on that side, but Hayden Hurst has really developed himself into that go-to tight end for them as a mid-tight end option given the volume so far this year. Again, he turned 8 targets into 7 receptions for 62 receiving yards. Definitely a fine day, especially in full and half PPR formats at the tight end position. Mentioned Julio Jones, 5 for 54 and a touchdown. Definitely a respectable day on 7 targets. Then we saw Blake, 3 for 31. Luke Stalker, 1 catch for 12 yards. Russell Gage, 2 catches for 11 yards on 6 targets. Kind of a disappointing day from him. Already mentioned Powell. And again, Todd Gurley, not really a huge production or a productive receiving back, but he did turn 2 catches into 2 yards. I mean, whatever. If you're playing a half PPR, that's an extra 1.2 points. I guess you'll take it, but definitely not something that is going to excite you. So going into the next game, I know these are taking a little bit long, but I'll try to cut it down a little bit for you guys. But we're going to be talking about the shootout of the week, the just an absolute fun game to watch as a fan. You had going into it, they were the 6-1 Seahawks and the 6-2 Bills. Well, no more. Seahawks get their second loss of the season, and the Bills absolutely put on a show offensively. 44-34 final score for the Bills, taking this one at home. And the 2 quarterbacks, it's basically a tale of 2 sides, because on one side you had Josh Allen absolutely lighting it up, 31 for 38, 415 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Russell Wilson threw a couple early picks, had 2 interceptions on the day. But once the Seahawks went into a hole, he really picked it up. 28 for 41 line, 390 yards and 2 touchdowns to go along with those 2 picks. So definitely two productive days, especially in a fantasy football mindset for those two quarterbacks. Russell Wilson also contributing a rushing touchdown. Same with Josh Allen. Russell Wilson turning 2 carries for 5 yards and a touchdown. Josh Allen, 7 carries for 14 yards and a touchdown. But talking about the running backs in this game, and to be honest, we had them ranked pretty high, especially DJ Dallas. Left a little bit to be desired, to be honest. I mean, with DJ Dallas's case, it makes sense because, again, they were in a big hole early on. They weren't really running the ball a lot, evidenced by the 41 rushing attempts or 41 passing attempts and only 17 rushing attempts. But DJ Dallas on the ground, 7 carries, 31 yards, and a touchdown. Travis Homer also contributed 6 carries for 16 yards and no touchdown. And Alex Collins did get 2 carries for 5 yards. So not much going on in the ground game. I'm going to mention the running backs contributed in the receiving game as well after I go through the Buffalo rushing stats. So Zach Moss led the team in carries, 9 carries for 18 yards and a touchdown. Definitely an uninspiring day against a tough Seattle front. I mean, the Bills as a team rushed 19 times for 34 yards and 2 touchdowns, with 14 of those yards coming from Josh Allen. Just a mess of a day. And Devin Singletary, the other main running back of the Bills, only contributed 2 carries for 1 yard. So overall, lackluster day for the rushing game for the Bills. But what they lacked in the rushing game, they definitely made up for it in the receiving game. So we're going to mention both sides. Guys, DK Metcalf at this point, you put him in your lineup, you don't fucking look at who he's facing against. You don't care who's supposed to shadow him, what corner's supposed to be on him, who's on his left nut. Like, I don't care who is on DK Metcalf at this point. He's going to give you top 6, top 7 production on any given week. 7 catches, 108 yards, and a touchdown at the end of the game on 9 targets. I mean, this guy is just phenomenal. He is the new age Calvin Johnson of this era. I mean, Calvin Johnson, don't get me wrong, is one of the top 5 receivers of all time. But from an athleticism basis, I mean, DK Metcalf is just he is the new age at Calvin Johnson. 7 catches, 108 yards, and a touchdown. We also saw David Moore, 4 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown with a long of 55, sorry. Crazy day for him. We did see Travis Homer bust off a big reception for 50 yards, ultimately producing 3 catches for 64 yards on the day. Jacob Hollister was the tight end to own for the Seahawks, 5 catches for 60 yards. And Tyler Lockett, 4 catches, 40 yards on 7 targets. I mean, DK Metcalf was the one dominating, and David Moore outproduced him. But Tyler Lockett, he's going to have some of these games. There's always going to be at least one option for the Seahawks that's just going to have a down game. They're all other than David Moore, but they're both fantastic options. It's just trying to pick them week to week. I mean, their volatility on a week-to-week basis is just going to be wide. You just have to accept that for an offense as efficient as the Seahawks are. Other contributors in the receiving game happen to be Will Disley, 1 catch for 26 yards. Greg Olsen, 2 catches for 13 yards. DJ Dallas, 2 catches for 8 yards. So overall, a very productive day for a very good passing offense. And on the flip side, I mean, Stephon Diggs just continuing his dominance, 12 targets, 9 receptions, and 118 yards. You're happy with that as your wide receiver 1, which is basically what Stephon Diggs. He is a top 7, top 8 overall wide receiver for the rest of the season, given his overall sheer target volume he receives on a good passing offense. John Brown, a nice bounce back, turned 11 targets into 8 catches for 99 yards. And then we're talking about Gabe Davis, 4 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. Definitely a fine day for a guy. A talented rookie. I mean, Gabe Davis was a guy they picked pretty late, stepped in as the wide receiver 3 on the team, at times was the wide receiver 2 when John Brown was struggling, and he's just played admirably for a rookie. Definitely an exciting guy to watch down the stretch. Cole Beasley, 3 catches, 39 yards, nothing inspiring whatsoever. Again, he's just going to be that safety blanket slot for a guy that doesn't really check it down often. I mean, he's going to have weeks like this where he's just uninspired performances. Devin Singletary, 3 catches for 33 yards. Zach Moss, 2 for 30. Isaiah McKenzie, 1 catch, 25 yards, and a touchdown. And Tyler Kroft with a 1-yard touchdown to clutch up his stat line. So definitely a fun game to watch. Buffalo Bills take it home against the Seattle Seahawks. Definitely the most exciting game, in my opinion, of the 1 p.m. window. On the flip side, this is probably the most boring game of the 1 p.m. window, unless you're owning A.J. Brown. But I'm going to get into Mr. A.J. Brown in a second. Talking about the 2 quarterbacks, pretty uninspiring lines overall. Again, Nick Foles turned 52 passing attempts into 335 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, I guess it's a good day for him. It's definitely something you'll take in fantasy. But, man, like, from an efficiency standpoint, like, no, that's okay. 39.3 QBR, like, no. And on the flip side, I mean, Ryan Tannehill was arguably even worse. 10 for 21, 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not good. Not good. He was really disappointing this week. Talking about the rushing game, again, such a David Montgomery type stat line. I mean, you know what you're getting with David Montgomery. He's either going to fall into the end zone and give you like low-end RB1, high-end RB2 production similar to Todd Gurley, or if he doesn't get in, you're just going to be pretty disappointed with him. He's going to get a workload. You know what it is. 14 carries, 30 yards. I mean, long of 5 yards. That's just not good enough. Not good enough. Talking about other contributors in the ground game, I actually had Cordero Patterson, 3 carries for 13 yards. Barkevious Mingo, an outside linebacker, led their team in yards per attempt, 1 carry for 11 yards. And then Nick Foles also turned 2 carries into 2 yards. So 20 total attempts, 56 total yards with a long of 11. They just had nothing to do on the ground game in this one. Not to mention, I mean, it's not like the Titans had any real success on the other side. I mean, Derrick Henry, the beast himself, a top 5 running back in the league, only turned 21 rushing attempts into 68 rushing yards. Not good. Not something to look forward to. He didn't really return anything in the receiving game as well. So, I mean, overall, you're very disappointed, especially considering that Derrick Henry is a guy that you set and forget. This is definitely something you want to forget in general. Deontay Foreman turned 5 carries into 11 yards. Jeremy McNichols, 2 carries for 10 yards. And Ryan Tannehill turned 3 carries into 3 yards. But although there were overall uninspiring lines from the quarterback position, there were a couple receivers in this one that actually put up some decent days. So we'll start on the Chicago side, and that's Allen Robinson turning 9 targets into 7 receptions, 81 receiving yards. Definitely a solid day, although he didn't get into the end zone. It's definitely something you're going to take from your wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 hybrid, basically, which is what Allen Robinson basically presents in value. He's just as consistent as they come. I mean, he's probably not going to score a ton of touchdowns this year. We kind of understand that. His touchdown total is probably going to be in the 5 to 8 range, but this guy's going to be a lock for over 100 targets or 100 catches. We know that at this point. He's probably going to near about 155, 160 targets. We know that. He's just a consistent accumulator for a team that's not really efficient in the passing game. Again, I just wish they had a quarterback. I just wish Allen Robinson had a quarterback because like we've seen with Stephon Diggs moving teams, I mean, a quarterback upgrade can really do you a solid. And if Allen Robinson had anyone close or anywhere close to what Josh Allen has played like this year, I mean, he'd be a top 6 or 7 overall receiver in fantasy football. Talking about other contributors on the Bears side, we got Anthony Miller, 5 catches, 59 yards. Jimmy Graham, 6 catches, 55 yards, and a touchdown. Definitely a fun day from the tight end position. Something that you really look forward to from a guy in Jimmy Graham. After a bounce back game or bad game last week, bounced back, played well. Definitely something you want to see. Saw Darnell Mooney, an exciting rookie. 11 targets in this one. Only 5 catches, 43 yards again. But if you watch the game, you just see time in, time again. Nick Foles is missing this guy. This guy is wide open down the field. He's running free. He's running with his hand up saying, hit me, hit me. Nick Foles doesn't hit him. I mean, Nick Foles is just not going to hit him. Talking about other options, again, Ryan Nall, backup running back, 4 catches, 35 yards, and a touchdown. Cordell Patterson, 4 catches, 27 yards. Riley Ridley actually got into this one. A rookie, Calvin's actual brother, for the record, former Georgia alum, actually turned 2 catches into 23 yards. And then David Montgomery out of the backfield, 3 catches for 12 yards. So going on the flip side, though, the guy that a lot of you are excited about, the main attraction, if you will, of this fantasy football matchup, if you will, other than Derrick Henry, in my opinion, that's going to be A.J. Brown, receiver from the Titans, 4 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown on 9 targets. I mean, this guy is just a yards after the catch freak, along a 40 where basically he caught a slant and just absolutely bullied people down the field. I mean, this guy is a matchup nightmare. It doesn't matter who he's playing against. He's going to contribute because he's that much of an alpha in the receiving game. Phenomenal talent. Other options, again, Jonnu Smith turned 2 targets into 2 catches for 32 receiving yards and a touchdown. Definitely want to see him receive a bigger target share over the course of the year, but I don't like how they've been using him. It's definitely scary territory. If you're owning Jonnu Smith right now, I don't want to say it's time to panic because he's still participating in routes. He's still getting a good snap share on the team, but he's getting out-targeted by Anthony Ferkser. I don't know what they're doing with him right now in terms of his overall usage, but, I mean, that's just unsustainable for a guy that you expect to have tight end 1 production on a week-to-week basis. I mean, this guy went from basically a top 5 tight end on the year. He was number 2 at one point to now, like, if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's basically useless, which is the majority of the tight end position. But for a guy as athletic and as talented as Jonnu Smith, it's just it sucks to see his role absolutely decrease to the amount it has with Corey Davis in the lineup. I mean, that's basically what's happened. Once Corey Davis got inserted back into the lineup, the usage for Jonnu Smith just absolutely decreased to the point where, again, that 30-yard touchdown saved his day. Other than that, he would have had one catch for 2 yards. Like, what are you going to do with that? All right. His backup tight end, I'm going to mention right now, is Anthony Ferkser. 6 targets, 3 catches, 19 yards. Again, not an overall good or efficient day from him, but he's out targeting. He had 3 times the amount of targets that Jonnu Smith had today. I don't know anymore, man. I don't know what's going on with Jonnu Smith. I don't know what to expect, but all I know is until he shows me more promise, I don't know if I can trust him in my lineup unless it's an absolute cake gravy matchup similar to what the Cardinals were against the tight end last year. Like that's the only way I'm really trusting this guy to give me top 5, top 6 production, which 2 weeks ago is what I was expecting from him. So disappointing again. Batson was able to produce 1 catch into 6 yards on 1 target, but the main disappointer of the game, Corey Davis, you knew a stinker like this was going to happen once, but 0 catches on 3 targets. After a 8 for 128 and a touchdown day, he ends up giving you an absolute goose leg in your lineup. This can happen. I mean, he's a heartbreaker. I mean, Corey Davis, former top 6 overall pick, he's always had expectations on him. As soon as we get expectations back on him, what does he do? He lets us down. I mean, I still think he can give you mid to low end wide receiver 3 production for the rest of the year. But man, like I was viewing him as a safe option. Every other week, he was just accumulating. But now I see, you know what? He's prone to have this type of game every now and then. I understand that. Again, doesn't overall like completely shift my view of him, but it is disappointing to see a guy that I viewed as overall safe just give an absolute dud of a day like that. I mean, it is what it is, but let's move on to the next matchup. So we talked about the Titans and Bears. Final score there being Titans 24, Bears 17. Let's move on to the next matchup being the Ravens and the Colts in this one. So we're going to talk about the 2 quarterbacks. Again, nothing really inspiring. Lamar Jackson just has not been in the same MVP caliber quarterback he was last year. He turned in 19 for 23, 170 yards with a 73 QBR. Not great, not bad, kind of average. I mean, they won the game. They kind of controlled the clock, if you will. But, yeah, I mean, he gave you 18 points from the quarterback position, which is basically what's his floor last year. And, like, it's something that you'll take at this point. So I would lower my expectations on him. I still view him as probably a mid 6 to 10 type QB1 this year. Not, like, anything near where I thought he would be. Again, I thought he would be competing with the guys like Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen on a week-to-week basis. But realistically, I mean, we just got to accept that his passing floor is just simply not what it was last year. I mean, efficiency went down. He's not running as much as he was last year. Again, he did have a little bounce back on the ground game, which is nice. 13 carries, 58 yards, and a touchdown. But realistically, compared to where he was at last year, averaging over 70 yards per game on the ground, scoring 7 rushing touchdowns. I mean, if he's not giving you that, his overall decline as a passer is just not going to suffice for you in ultimately giving you top 5 production at the position. So I would just temper my expectations on him. I still think he can be a quarterback 1 the rest of the year. But top 3, where we expected, probably not going to happen. On the flip side, I mean, Phillip Rivers is just Phillip Rivers, 25 for 43, 227, and a pick. If you started Phillip Rivers in this matchup, I don't know what to tell you unless you're in a deep dynasty league and you had a couple buys, but don't start Phillip Rivers. I mean, just don't. Save yourself some hassle. He's just not someone you want to watch on Sundays or Thursdays or Mondays or any day. On the Ravens side, so I mentioned the Lamar Jackson overall rushing floor that he gave you in this game. J.K. Dobbins really commanded the backfield overall in terms of touches. I mean, Gus Edwards did have 11 for 23 and a touchdown. He really came on at the end of the game, if you will. I mean, he scored that touchdown really late. But J.K. Dobbins wasn't really efficient. His worst game as a pro so far against the stout Indianapolis Colts defense. But, I mean, 12 carries for 30 yards. And in the receiving game was able to produce 2 catches for 5 yards. So nothing inspiring, nothing that you really want to see from a guy who you view as a transcendent league-winning type asset down the stretch. But, yeah, it could just be attributed to being a bad game for a talented rookie running back against a really good defense. So I'm not too worried about J.K. Dobbins in the long term. Again, I also mentioned Gus Edwards, 11 carries, 23 yards, and was able to produce a touchdown, as well as 2 catches for 11 yards on 2 targets. So overall, similar lines for them in terms of overall carries and efficiency, except Gus Edwards was able to get into the end zone, which is why he produced a better overall fantasy day. Other carries on the ground, I mean, Matt Skura had to carry, and Dever Duvernay lost a yard on carry. I mean, nothing to write home about. The main story on the other end, I mean, this one is just, frankly, the Colts want to piss us off at this point, right? Is that what they're trying to do? Like, are you fucking serious? Are you serious, Frank Reich? Are you serious? Jonathan Taylor was out-touched by Jordan Wilkins yet again. And it just the overall fashion of the way it happened is just infuriating. I mean, this guy received the first 5 carries of the game for the team. He was the bell cow to start the game. 1 fumble, got the Ronald Jones treatment. 1 fumble. I mean, this is a talented rookie back that you have off to a good start in this game. He's going to fumble once, and you're just not going to let him get the opportunity to bounce back from it. I mean, that's infuriating. If you're a JT owner, it's a mess of a situation. You don't want to realistically own him down the stretch. I mean, he's a low-end RB2, guys. He's a low-end RB2. I know consensus ECR these past 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks or so since he took over after Marlon Mack got hurt, wanted to rank him in the top 6, top 7, top 8 overall backs every single week. He's a low-end RB2. I'm done talking about Jonathan Taylor. People put these absurd expectations on him. He's the next Nick Chubb. He's a more athletic Nick Chubb, yada, yada, yada. He's been a fucking bust this year. There's no other way, no easy way to put this. He's been inefficient. He's getting out-touched now. He's getting outworked overall by that overall running back committee for the Colts. I mean, Nyheim Hines is doing more in the passing game. Jordan Wilkins is out touching him in the rushing game. What does Jonathan Taylor do for you rest of the season? I mean, until I see it, I'm not believing it, okay? Like, I don't know what to tell you guys anymore with Jonathan Taylor. I'm fucking had it with him. If you have him on your team and you have any other better options on your bench, fucking send that guy to fucking purgatory for all I care. That guy can wait in there for a couple of weeks because realistically, this guy's 8 weeks, or he puts up 8 points, while getting a touchdown. Like, not good enough. Not good enough. Talking about that, though, 11 carries for 39 yards from Jordan Wilkins. Demetrius Harris was able to produce 2 carries for 28 yards in this one. Jonathan Taylor, again, 6 carries, 27 yards, and a touchdown. By the way, this guy, first 5 carries of the game, scores a touchdown. You're thinking, you know what? Maybe this is the bounce back. Maybe this is the game Jonathan Taylor bursts out and then fucking 1 fumble and he's fucking see you later, pal. Like, no. And Nyheim Hines, 2 carries for 18 yards. But as getting off of this, let's talk about the receiving game of both teams. And the leading receiver for the Ravens was Nick Boyle. 4 catches, 46 yards on 4 targets. I mean, okay, whatever. Marquise Brown, 3 catches for 38 yards on 5 targets. Another uninspiring day from a super volatile option in Marquise Brown. I'm almost done with him as well. Like, fucking hell. What the fuck are you doing for me? 3 catches for 38 yards? That's just not good enough. Willie Snead, 4 catches for 37 yards. And Mark Andrews, another disappointing week yet again. 3 catches, 22 yards on 5 targets. Miles Boykin, 1 catch for 11 yards. Gus Edwards, 2 for 11. And then J.K. Dobbins rounding it out at 2 catches for 5 yards. Talking about the Colts, we're going to actually see a little breakthrough, if you will, from Michael Pittman Jr., the talented rookie out of USC. On 7 targets, he was able to produce 4 catches, 56 yards. A nice, inspiring day for a guy who myself and Bush were very high on in the draft process. Definitely thought he was a good, talented player. And he played like it today. So I'm definitely encouraged. I'm definitely excited to see what we see from him down the stretch. But definitely a nice day for him. On the flip side, again, Zach Pascal, 5 catches, 55 yards on 6 targets. Mo Ali Cox, 3 catches, 43 yards on 3 targets. Demetrius Harris, 4 catches, 27 yards on 4 targets. Nyheim Hines, again, the leader of the backfield, 2 catches for 20 yards. Rounding out the receiving totals of the team, Marcus Johnson, 2 for 14. Jonathan Taylor, 2 catches for 7 yards. And Trey Burton, a guy that actually had some decent expectations going into this game, 1 catch for 6 yards on 4 targets. I mean, with Jack Doyle going out, like, it's the Mo Ali Cox show, I guess, even though he only had 3 for 43. I mean, realistically, I don't want any of these guys. Especially with Philip Rivers throwing the ball. They're going to be a low-volume offense overall. Like, I don't want any of these guys. Anyways, let's get into the next game. 24-10 final there for the Ravens. I mean, just a fucking mess. We're going to talk about another super fun game of the week. If the Seahawks Bills wasn't the most exciting game of the week, this is definitely the next contender, in my opinion. That's going to be the Chiefs versus the Carolina Panthers, a 33-31 final score for the Chiefs, where at the last whistle, I mean, Joey Sly missed the game-winning field goal that would have pushed Carolina over the top. But this game did not lack action whatsoever. This was the return of the king of fantasy football in Christian McCaffrey, and my oh my, did he reclaim his throne? But we're going to get into that. So starting off, I mean, Teddy Bridgewater, a productive day, 36 for 49, 310 passing yards, and 2 touchdowns. Definitely a good, efficient streaming option for you, especially also contributed on the ground, 2 carries for 19 yards and a touchdown. 3 total touchdowns from him, 329 total yards. Definitely something you signed up for if you put him in your lineup as a streamer. And on the flip side, I mean, there's no way in heck you're going to be able to stream this guy because he is the best fantasy football quarterback at the moment. I mean, it's close. You got Russell Wilson, you got Kyler Murray, but give me Patrick Mahomes, man. This guy, the best quarterback on the best offense of the league. I mean, another phenomenal day from him. 30 for 45, 372 passing yards, and 4 passing touchdowns. He's a cheat code. He's a cheat code. He's what we needed Lamar to be to actually give you a return on investment in the second round. I mean, look, Patrick Mahomes, you're not complaining about picking him in that area. That's what you expected Lamar Jackson to be. You expected him to be able to get you that fantasy football superstar type ceiling on a week-to-week basis. And Patrick Mahomes just been that. Talking about in the ground game, as I mentioned, I mean, Christian McCaffrey returned to action, 28 total touches. He turned 18 carries into 69 rushing yards and a touchdown. And then in the receiving game, I mean, this guy is just a monster. 10 targets, 10 receptions, 82 receiving yards, and a touchdown. I mean, when we say that this guy is the ultimate RB1 wide receiver 1 combo, like, we're not joking. This guy, 37 half PPR points. It's just, give this guy his fucking MVP. I mean, when he comes back, when he's, well, he is back, but I'm telling you right now, I tweeted it out today, but if you don't have one of Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, or Dalvin Cook on your fantasy football rosters, you're just not winning your championship. You're not. I mean, I unless you have an absolute stack to the core team, or you have like Davante Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf as your receivers, and then like Nick Chubb and like Kareem Hunt as your fucking running backs. I mean, these guys just offer such a steep drop off from the rest of their peers at the position. I mean, there's such a tier above everyone else at this point at the running back position that it's just simply unfair having to match them if you don't have one of them. I mean, the baseline that they give you, these guys are going to give you 30-plus points, 25-plus points on any given week. I mean, fuck, we're going to get into Dalvin Cook in a bit, but that guy he's the best running back in the league at this current time. I mean, this guy's averaging 6 yards per carry. He's absolutely dominating on the ground. He's led the Vikings to 2 straight wins. I mean, we're going to get into him later. If you're actually talking about receiving backs, obviously we got Kamara and McCaffrey supplementing their value in that way as well. McCaffrey's back. If you had a chance to buy low on him, you were 6-1, 7-1, could have waited a couple weeks. I hope you did, because he's going to win you championships down the stretch. Anyways, let's get off Christian McCaffrey's nuts. We'll talk about the overall split in the backfield. Again, I mentioned that Christian McCaffrey, 28 total touches, Mike Davis, 7. They were talking about going into the game that, maybe it would be a quote-unquote decent split between them because Christian McCaffrey, quote-unquote, got to get eased back in. That's not what we saw. We saw Christian McCaffrey return to his bell cow status in this game. Definitely exciting to watch. Talking about other rushers on the ground for the Panthers, Curtis Samuel, 3 for 13, and Mike Davis, 1 carry for 3 yards, as mentioned. Talking about the Chiefs side, I mean, 12 total rushing attempts. I mean, this is a team that had 12 total rushing attempts and 45 total passing attempts. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. Like, this is just such an unsustainable pass-to-run ratio that, like, I mean, credit where credit's due. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is getting 5 of the 12 total carries in this backfield and ultimately giving you 3 catches for 20 yards in the receiving game as well. But, I mean, if they're not running the ball at the clip that we need him to, he's just going to be a week-to-week RB, high on RB2, low on RB1. I mean, I don't even know where to rank him because if he was getting more volume, he would be a fringe top 5, top 6 overall running back. But they're just not running the ball. I mean, same thing with Le'Veon Bell, 4 carries for 8 yards. I understand that as well. Tyreek Hill had an end around for 8 yards, and then Patrick Mahomes had 0 yards. So they had overall 12 rushing attempts for 30 rushing yards and 30 passing attempts for 372 receiving yards. So let's talk about the overall receivers in this game. Leader from the Panthers side, we did see Curtis Samuel on 9 targets, 9 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. Definitely an inspiring day from Curtis Samuel. Definitely one you want to see from him. The leader in targets for the Panthers happened to be Robbie Anderson, as always. 13 targets, 9 receptions, 63 receiving yards. He's their underneath guy, if you will. We expected it going into the season. DJ Moore was going to operate from the slot. He would be their underneath guy. They gave him the slants. They give him the short work. But it's just been Robbie Anderson's role to lose. And we're going to mention DJ Moore in a second. But Mike Davis, next receiver, 5 catches, 34 receiving yards on 6 targets. Definitely a good day, especially from a guy that you didn't really expect to have any type of production behind C-Mac. But C-Mac missed a couple plays, kind of went out for a second with a little shoulder injury. Mike Davis suited in, got a couple passes in that time frame. So not a terrible day from him. I mean, you probably didn't start him. I hope you didn't start him, but nice to see, I guess, that he could still contribute. Especially if Christian McCaffrey were to go down again, you know what he's going to be able to offer you. Brandon Zylstra, 1 catch for 28 yards. DJ motherfucking Moore, my wide receiver 6 going into the season. The guy I expected to be one of the top receiving yard leaders in the league, coming off almost a 1,300-yard season as a sophomore. 2 catches for 18 yards on 3 targets. I mean, no. I don't know what to say with this guy anymore. He's a wide receiver 3. He's a mid wide receiver 3 at best. I mean, I went into the season thinking he could give you low end wide receiver 1, mid wide receiver 1 type numbers. It's just not in store. That guy is Robbie Anderson for this offense. I mean, I hope you can acknowledge at this point, we've been talking about it on the show a couple times over these last couple of weeks, but Robbie Anderson is the guy to own on this team. I mean, there's no other way to put it at this point. Anyways, 2 for 18 for DJ Moore. Talking about Ian Thomas, 1 catch for 8 yards. So overall rounds out the Panthers. And then talking about the Chiefs, we saw a huge day from Travis Kelce, the best tight end in football, especially with George Kittle out. I do think it's close in real life, but given the availability, given the offense he's in fantasy football, he reigns supreme at the position. Tight end 1 over these last 5 years. Produced another 10 for 159. I mean, as consistent as they come. Tyreek Hill, 9 catches, 113 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, this guy is just a freak of nature. Mecole Hardman, 3 for 48. Duncan Robinson, 3 for 34 and a touchdown. As I mentioned, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was able to produce 3 for 20 and a touchdown. And other contributors happened to be Darrell Williams, 1 catch for 3 yards, and Le'Veon Bell lost 5 yards on his only reception of the day. So overall, fireworks type of game. Definitely one that you're excited owning. A lot of assets in this game, other than maybe DJ Moore. But yeah, let's get into the next one. And we're going to mention the Lions and Vikings. So not really much to talk about here. I'm gonna trim it down for these last few things, but just for record, Matthew Stafford, 211 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, not good. Same thing. I mean, Kirk Cousins had a good day. Good day. Sorry, 220 for with 3 touchdowns. And but yeah, I'm gonna mention the receiving game. Nothing too crazy there. Maybe Marvin Jones, 5 for 43 and a touchdown. T.J. Hawkinson, 5 for 39 and a touchdown. And Justin Jefferson, not a crazy day, but 3 for 64 overall, with Adam Thielen absolutely getting locked up, 2 for 38. But the main name in this game, Dalvin Cook, I mentioned it with Christian McCaffrey. There's 3 running backs you want to own in fantasy football, and if you don't own any of them, I just don't think you have a realistic shot at the championship this year. Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, and Alvin Kamara. Dalvin Cook, 22 carries, 206 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then in the receiving game, 2 catches for 46 yards on 2 targets. Guy is a freak. Like, if you had him in your lineup these last 2 weeks and didn't win both those weeks, I am completely judging your other lineup decisions, because this guy should have carried you to the last 2 wins. What an absolute freak. 6 yards per carry on the season, leading the league basically in rushing. I mean, 13 rushing touchdowns. I mean, I don't know what else you could expect from him at this point. Unbelievable. On the other end, we did see not Kerryon Johnson, DeAndre Swift end up getting 13 carries for 64 yards, and then in the receiving game also produced 3 for 33. Definitely a fine RB2 type day for him, something you like to see moving forward. Let's move on. By the way, the Vikings ended up winning that game by a score of 34-20. So Anyways, going into the next matchup, I'm going to be talking about the Giants and the Washington football team. Not really much going on in this game. I mean, if you started Kyle Allen, devastating ankle injury, thoughts and prayers for him. If you made it this far in the video, leave your thoughts and prayers for Kyle Allen and that ultimate recovery from that devastating ankle. But a guy who also suffered a devastating injury, and Alex Smith stepped in to the tune of 325 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 picks. I don't care about the stat line. The fact that this guy is still fucking playing football, he deserves everybody's respect. I mean, what he's gone through, that injury that he had. I mean, I'm just baffled that this guy is still in the NFL. I mean, unbelievable. On the other end, we did see Daniel Jones 212 and 1 touchdown. Not great. We did see Wayne Gallman, 14 carries for 68 yards and a touchdown. Decent day from him. And then also Antonio Gibson, 6 for 20 and a touchdown, with J.D. McKissic giving you 3 for 17. Overall, kind of a disappointing day, if you will, for Antonio Gibson. He did have that fumble as well, 3 catches for 35 yards. Not meeting expectations. We expected low-end RB1, high-end RB2 type of day, and he just wasn't able to do that for you. Anyways, let's get off these terrible running back situations right now, and let's go to the receivers, where it was led by Terry McLaurin, 68-yard touchdown, absolutely torched down the field. I mean, this guy's a stud. He's a top 15 receiver week to week. I don't care what the fucking matchup is. I mean, James Bradbury is one of the best corners in the NFL this year, and he 7 for 115 and a touchdown, and what's supposed to be one of the hardest matchups he's going to have this year. The guy is a freak. Terry McLaurin, put him in your lineup. I don't care. He's going to be your wide receiver too. I don't care. He's going to produce for you. Other receivers on the Washington football team, we're going to talk about Cam Sims, 3 for 110. J.D. McKissic, 14 targets, 9 catches, 65 yards. I mean, if you flexed him, congratulations. But what the hell was that? And other interesting or important receiving option for this team is going to be Logan Thomas, 3 catches for 28 yards on 6 targets. Not great. I mean, we expected more given his level of production these last few weeks, but you'll take it. You'll take what you can get at the tight end position, because just tight ends are going to have this type of production every now and then. Talking about the Giants, Austin Mack led them in receiving, 4 catches for 72 yards, whatever. Evan Ingram, decent day, 5 for 48 and a touchdown, basically showing you why he's Jason Witten 2.0 in this offense, even though he's much more athletic. Not an efficient player. Maybe he'll fall into the end zone for you and give you a productive day, but nothing crazy to walk or write home about there, if you will. And yeah, I guess this is other than Wayne Gallman, this is basically what their run game was, because Sterling Shepard, 6 catches for 39 yards. Like, what are you doing? Those are running back numbers. You're averaging basically 6.5 yards per reception. What's going on there? I don't know. He's just playing. He's playing the Golden Tate role with Golden Tate out of the lineup. Obviously, with Golden Tate's out of the lineup, we're going to see a lot more slot usage of Sterling Shepard. But I guess you'll take it. PPR formats, it's not a terrible day, but nothing to really write home about. And then the main one, I mean, Darius Slayton absolutely locked the fuck down. Kendall Fuller, I mean, I mentioned it in the Start Sit show. Kendall Fuller has been balling the fuck out this year. Shuts down Darius Slayton, another victim on his board, if you will. I mean, 1 catch for 6 yards on 1 target is just not going to do it. I mean, if you put him in your lineup, I'm sorry to hear that, because Darius Slayton absolutely busted this week. Next guy I'm going to mention, or the next matchup, if you will. By the way, the Washington football team lost at home. The Giants clutched it 23-20 on the road against the Washington football team. Almost blew it at the end there, had a 23-10 lead. Washington football team was not able to complete the comeback, finished the game 23-20. Talking about the next matchup, though, man. 2 main storylines coming out of this game, if you will. Jake Ludon obviously replacing Gardner Minshew, and the other one actually happened mid-game. David Johnson goes out with injury right off the bat for this team. Gets a concussion within the first 2 series of the game. Ultimately, a big loss, especially considering that this guy was being utilized as your main RB2 mostly in your lineups. You're not going to have him. I mean, it's concussion, so we'll wait and see on the overall update of his status. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he missed a couple weeks, 3 weeks. I mean, it's concussion. I want to see how long he's out for. But keep an eye on Duke Johnson. I'm going to mention him on the waiver show, but 16 attempts for 41 yards and a touchdown in his absence. David Johnson, before he getting hurt, 2 carries for 16 yards, so a decent day from him as well. But anyways, let's get back to the quarterbacks. We're going to see 2 good days from either side. We got Deshaun Watson, 281 yards, 2 touchdowns, while also contributing 50 rushing yards. I mean, this guy, he's a top 5 quarterback rest of the season. I mean, what I mentioned that Lamar was missing is what Deshaun Watson has. This guy's just got the juice this year. He's providing it week in, week out. I mean, one of the worst teams in the NFL, he's just balling the fuck out. But yeah, I'm going to mention the exciting receivers as well in a bit as well. But an exciting offense to watch for sure. Jake Ludon, 304 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And also on the ground game, I mean, the people that were saying sell off James Robinson, he's regression. Nah. 25 rushing attempts, 99 rushing yards, and a touchdown. And he's such a workhorse in this offense. I mean, he received 25 of their total 27 carries in this game. I mean, what a freak of nature. Talking about the receivers, as I kind of alluded to, I mean, we saw phenomenal days on either side. Will Fuller on the one end, 5 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. Brandon Cooks, 3 for 83 and a touchdown. And we also saw Duke Johnson actually had 4 catches for 32 yards in the absence of David Johnson. Other main contributors, if you are guys of relevance, Randall Cobb, kind of a disappointing day. 3 targets, 3 catches for 21 yards, but that's just going to happen when those other 2 receivers are balling in the sense that they are. Yeah, I mean, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks definitely performed up to expectations in this game. On the other end, the only real one that absolutely exceeded expectations, if you will, DJ Chark had his bounce back game. We saw the target totals the previous 2 weeks, 14, 7. He received another 12 today. On those 12 targets, turned them into 7 catches, 146 receiving yards, and a touchdown with a long touchdown of 73 yards. I mean, this guy, if he keeps that chemistry with Ludon, he could definitely be a potential wide receiver 2, like wide receiver 3 type down the stretch for you in your fantasy football lineups. We were mentioning that he was a potential drop candidate with the quarterback change, but the chemistry and the overall target share that he got, again, he received 12 targets on Jake Ludon's 38 overall attempts, almost a 33% market share of the team. I mean, this guy just absolutely performed. He bounced back in a huge way after a couple subpar weeks. Mentioning the next guy is going to be Chris Conley, 7 catches on 8 targets for 52 receiving yards. Not a bad day. Tyler Eifert, good overall tight end option in this game, 4 catches, 48 yards. Nothing to write home about, but nothing you're going to be disappointed about. And then finally, another main contributor could be Chris Thompson, 4 catches for 35 receiving yards. Not a bad day out of the backfield. But main disappointments, if you will, obviously we're going to mention Keelan Cole, 1 catch for 6 yards. I mean, just somebody that's been kind of consistent a little bit this year. Not a good line from him whatsoever. And then Laviska Shenault. I mean, the injury to Laviska Shenault is one of the most heartbreaking things for the channel, for fantasy football Twitter, for anybody who plays fantasy football. I mean, just such a young, exciting rookie receiver in Shenault. I mean, I hope he's back soon because realistically, the NFL is a better watch with Laviska Shenault playing. He's just such an exciting player to watch on the field. Anyways, the Houston Texans clutched this game out by a final score of 27-25, bringing the Texans record to 2-6 and then dropping the Jaguars to 1-7. So, yeah, I mean, what an exciting game overall, especially for a lot of fantasy valuable type assets, if you will. So, talking about the next game. Again, we're going to be going to the 4:00 window with a very exciting finish in this one. I mean, we're going to be talking about the Raiders and Chargers finish where the Chargers score a game-winning touchdown at the end of the game that ultimately gets ruled incomplete. And again, out of Chargers' luck, drops them another one-possession game. Raiders jump up to 5-3. The Chargers fall to 2-6. So if you're looking at the game overall, Derek Carr, decently efficient day, 165 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. On the flip side, I mean, Justin Herbert is continuing his reign. He's offensive rookie of the year favorite at this point. I mean, this guy is just shredding week in and week out. I mean, I love Joe Burrow, the player, but Justin Herbert's going to be the rookie of the year at this point. 28 for 42 line, 326 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Hopefully he's okay. He suffered a scare at the end of the game, ended up leaving the game with an injury. So definitely something to monitor there. But if this guy plays, he's a freak. He's a freak. He's a top 10 quarterback rest of the season if he does play on a week-to-week basis. I mean, the overall balance of floor and ceiling he gives you, he's giving you a little bit on the ground, 5 for 24. His passing upside has been tremendous, basically passing for 300 yards in every single game that he plays. And I mean, what we missed was Justin Herbert in Oregon. How does a coaching staff let such a talented quarterback look so pedestrian in college? I mean, hell, This guy should have been projected as arguably maybe the first overall pick in the draft, given how he's been playing thus far. I thought he would be raw. I thought he'd be tentative. I thought he would be someone that needed time to develop, but he stepped in the spotlight. Tyrod Taylor went down, and Justin Herbert has just been a fucking animal out there. I mean, definitely a fun watch. Going to be mentioning the running backs next, and big news on one side, but I'll get into that. For the record, on the Oakland or LA or Las Vegas, you know what I mean, Las Vegas versus LA matchup here, but the Las Vegas Raiders, Devontae Booker turned 8 carries to 68 yards and a touchdown. Not a bad day from him. Working behind Josh Jacobs, obviously 14 attempts for 65 yards and a touchdown. Don't really like seeing that type of split, but he was kind of questionable going into the game, so it makes sense why he didn't get the full workload that we expect from him. And aside from that, I mean, Derek Carr, a couple carries for 14 yards. Henry Ruggs got a 10-yard end around, and Jalen Richard, 1 carry for 3 yards, whatever. The main storyline on the Chargers end, the injury to Justin Jackson, or the non-utilization of Justin Jackson, whatever it was. I believe he got hurt, maybe came back into the game. They didn't really think he was suitable to play. I don't fucking know what happened, but they better fucking explain themselves after that goose egg that he put up. First series, leaves the game with a knee injury. Didn't really see him back in the game, rest of the game. I think he came back on the sideline, but I don't fucking know. I know you guys are watching this video. You're probably like, well, Dan, you told us he was a top 10 running back this week. You bet it on anything, yada, yada. I get that, and I'm disappointed like you guys. I just don't know. I can't anticipate that type of shit happening. And hell, if you're looking at how good of a matchup it was, fucking Kalen Ballage, one of the worst running backs I've ever seen. 15 attempts for 69 rushing yards and a touchdown in this game. Give Justin Jackson that work if he doesn't get hurt. I mean, I bet you he's giving you top 10 type of production. I mean, you're getting 12.9 points from fucking Kalen Ballage. Actually, you're adding his receiving game as well. You're getting 15 points from Kalen Ballage. I'm sure Justin Jackson is not only equaling that, but besting that. I mean, anyways, we can't talk about what ifs because he did get hurt, but Kalen Ballage, 15 attempts, 69 yards, and a touchdown. Josh Kelly, 9 for 28. Was such a Josh Kelly type line. Already mentioned Justin Herbert with the 5 for 24. And then we did see Joe Reed actually contribute 2 carries for 7 yards as well. Talking about the receivers, nothing really too inspiring from the Raiders end. Again, 2 for 60 for Hunter Renfrow, 2 for 55 and a touchdown from Nelson Agholor. Yeah, Nelson Agholor is an interesting type player in a super deep format, simply because he is so efficient with his work. You can't project this guy for over 4 or 5 targets in a single game. But, man, it seems like he's contributing a 35, 40-yard touchdown on any given week. He had another 45-yarder today. Definitely an interesting watch on the stretch if any more targets were to open up in this offense. This guy's a super efficient player for the Oakland Raiders, or Las Vegas Raiders. Talking about the volume hog on the team, if you will. Darren Waller, 5 catches, 22 yards, and a touchdown on 10 targets. I mean, the target share is absolutely massive with this guy. 10 targets on 23 total passing attempts. Yeah, it's that big. Jalen Richard, 1 catch for 19 yards. And then we also saw Josh Jacobs catch a pass for 3 yards, while Henry Ruggs actually shut out on the day on 3 targets. On the flip side, I mean, Keenan Allen's continuing his reign of supreme with Justin Herbert under center. I mean, this guy is a wide receiver run rest of the way. Not another 9 catches, 103 yards, and a touchdown on 11 targets. We did see Mike Williams with a productive day before actually he left the game for a play basically, but on the second last play of the game, he went up for the game-winning touchdown, wasn't able to come down with it, and he absolutely got mauled in the process. So keep an eye on Mike Williams. He left that game banged up. Definitely want to see how he returns to action during the week. But before he left, 5 catches on 7 targets for 81 receiving yards. Definitely a fine day from your flex. I mean, aside from that, Hunter Henry, another fucking disappointing day. But what do I tell you on this channel every week? This guy's the most overrated tight end in the league. 4 catches, 33 yards yet again. He's not a volume guy, and he's not a touchdown guy. So what the fuck is he this year? I mean, he's nothing. He's useless. He's a tight end too. I mean, people want to rank him in the top 7, top 6 every fucking week. This guy's just going to disappoint you every fucking week. I tell you, every single week, he's just not good. And then Josh Kelly, one of the biggest thumpers in the league, like 5 catches for 31 yards, replacing the quote-unquote Justin Jackson role. I mean, yeah, I mentioned it in the show. 9.4 targets per game and 6.4 receptions per game conceded by the Raiders against opposing running backs. Well, it just so happened that Josh Kelly and Kalen Ballage combined for 7 catches. Is that correct? 7 catches on that would be 8 total targets. So, I mean, the numbers are right there. It's just you give those targets, those catches overall to Justin Jackson. It's game over. It's game over. I guess I don't know. I'm disappointed. Anyways, let's get into the next game. The Raiders were able to clutch that game 31-26 with that reverse touchdown call. Talking about the next game, we're going to be talking about let me just double check here. Yeah, okay. My Cowboys against the Steelers. I mean, I don't know what the fuck that was. I don't know how we were leading that game for as long as we were. I mean, we were up 19-9 going into the fourth quarter. Beats me. But anyways, we saw a decent debut, if you will, from Garrett Gilbert, 21 for 38, 243 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Definitely a big step up from what we saw from Ben DiNucci. I mean, this guy actually looked like an NFL caliber quarterback. Ben DiNucci simply did not. Ben Roethlisberger on the other end, I mean, a huge day for him. 29 for 42, 306 yards, and 3 touchdowns. 25-point performance, definitely something you want to see in your lineup. I made the right call starting him over Lamar Jackson, not to toot my own horn. Mentioned that all week. On the ground game, I mean, very uninspiring performance from a Steelers rushing attack against one of the worst rushing defenses, if you will, in the NFL. I mean, 18 total carries for 46 attempts. Leading the way was James Conner. 9 carries for 22 yards. And in the receiving game, 2 catches for -2 yards. I mean, disappointing performance from a guy I had ranked as my RB5 on the week. He should be able to bounce back from this, but I guess the Cowboys front just came to play and absolutely manhandled the Steelers on this given week. I mean, I guess it's called any given Sunday for a reason, right? Talking about other performances on the ground, I mean, nothing too crazy from the Steelers then. Talking about the Cowboys, I mean, Tony Pollard was the efficient back to own in this game. 9 carries, 57 rushing yards with multiple 20-yard gains. And Ezekiel Elliott, I mean, he's the same guy that you got to expect for the rest of the season. He's going to be volume dependent, RB3, or low-end RB2 type. That's just, if he falls in the end zone, might give you back value. But he's just not going to fall into the end zone a lot because the offense is that putrid. 18 attempts for 51 yards, and in the receiving game, 2 catches for 18 yards. So, I mean, that 7.9 performance that he's giving you in half PPR formats is just not going to suffice from a guy that we had expectations to be a top 5 running back going into the year. So definitely disappointing from him. Again, Garrett Gilbert, a little bit with the ground game as well with his legs, 3 carries for 28 yards, and Amari Cooper had a 8-yard end around, if you will. So not a bad day from Pollard and Garrett Gilbert there, if you will. Talking about the receiving game for the Steelers, we saw all 3 kind of have decent days overall because Ben was throwing the ball so much with an ineffective ground game. We saw Juju Smith-Schuster, a nice bounce back for him. 7 targets. He turned into 6 catches, 93 yards, and a touchdown. Deontay Johnson, 10 targets. He turned into 6 catches for 77 yards. And then Chase Claypool was operating as like the underneath receiver, which is weird considering Juju's been that all year. But anyways, 13 targets, 8 catches for 69 yards for Claypool. And we also saw Eric Ebron, the tight end, 6 targets, 3 catches for 22 yards and a touchdown, while James Washington also had a touchdown for them in this game. Talking about the Cowboys, we did see CeeDee Lamb, rookie receiver, lead the way, 7 targets, 4 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown. Definitely an exciting day if you had him in fantasy, other than the fumble, perhaps. Amari Cooper, not a bad day. Wide receiver 2 type production, if you will. 6 targets, 5 catches, 67 yards. Dalton Schultz, a nice little decent tight end game. 7 targets, 4 for 48. And then the main, if you will, I don't even know what to call it. Anyways, the main disappointer would be Michael Gallup, 3 for 36 on 7 targets. I mean, we did see him perform last week when everybody else wasn't performing. This week, I mean, 7 targets, he turned to 3 for 36 is just not good enough to have in your lineup. Anyways, let's get into the next game, and we're going to be talking about the Cardinals and the Dolphins, the game of the 4 o'clock window. My upset of the week, I actually did on the live stream pick the Dolphins to beat the Cardinals, so a nice little pat on my back, or pat myself on the back, if you will. Anyways, let's get into this game because there's a ton of fireworks going on, especially on the Cardinals end. But talking about the quarterbacks, I mean, rookie quarterback Tua Tagovailoa had a very good performance in this game, 20 for 28, 248 yards, 2 touchdowns. And on the flip side, I mean, Kyler Murray, phenomenal. 21 for 26, 283, 3 touchdowns, no picks, while also contributing 106 rushing yards and a touchdown. He is this year's Lamar Jackson. Book it in stone right now. This guy is matchup proof rest of the way against a tough Dolphins defense. he's just going to be a stud rest of the year. I would be heavily shocked if he doesn't finish a top 2, top 3 overall quarterback on the year. Phenomenal production from Kyler Murray. Talking about on the ground game, Miami was led the way on an efficiency basis, 7 carries for 30 yards from Salvin Ahmed. And of course, this just had to happen today. I mean, Jordan Howard, 10 carries, 19 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, that's just a Jordan Howard fucking stat line. I mean, even that total was fucking hailed by an 8-yard rush. You take that 8-yard rush away, I mean, this guy's rushing 9 carries for 11 yards. I mean, you're not starting Jordan Howard in fantasy. Like, if you actually put him in your lineup, regardless of the situation from now on, I mean, I'm just going to slap you. Talking about Tua Tagovailoa with the legs as well, 7 carries for 35 yards. And then on the Cardinals end, I mentioned the production from Kyler Murray. A little bit of a disappointed day in terms of efficiency from Chase Edmonds. But, I mean, the workload was absolutely there. He turned 28 total touches into 88 total yards. So he had 25 carries for 70 yards and 3 catches for 18 yards. So overall, a decent volume RB2 type day, but nothing that we had expectations for. Again, he was my RB8 on the week. If I knew he was going to get 28 total attempts going into this game, I probably would have had him even higher than that, but he just wasn't efficient against ultimately a good Dolphins defense. Talking about the receiving game, the Parkers. The Dolphins were actually led by Davante Parker in this one, 6 for 64 and a touchdown, or not a touchdown, on 7 targets. Preston Williams was the one on a touchdown. He ended up actually getting banged up a little bit in this game, but he turned 4 catches into 60 yards and a touchdown on 5 targets with a 35 long. Mike Gesicki had a little bit of a resurgence, if you will, after getting shut out the last couple of weeks. 3 for 42. Not terrible on 4 targets. I mean, not great, but not terrible, I guess. And then on the flip side, I mean, we really saw a fantastic day from Christian Kirk. 5 for 123 and a touchdown on 8 targets. Larry Fitzgerald, 454 on 5 targets. And then the disappointing player of this matchup, in my opinion, outside of Chase Edmonds, has to be DeAndre Hopkins. Only 3 targets, 3 receptions, 30 yards, was getting locked up all game. Definitely have to rewatch the tape on this one, but he just wasn't getting utilized. I mean, I guess they didn't need it because Kyler Murray was torching them. Christian Kirk was torching them, but disappointing day from a guy who's ultimately going to give you top 4, top 5 wide receiver value the rest of the season. So should be able to bounce back fine, but definitely a disappointing day from DeAndre Hopkins there. And then talking about finally the last matchup, the Sunday night football matchup. I'm recording this after the game for the record for you guys, but Bush, if you made it this far in the video, cover your ears. You're not going to want to hear this. A 38-3 thumping. The New Orleans Saints. Sorry, I'm tearing up a little bit. The New Orleans Saints put on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, the New Orleans Saints were the road team in this one. Bumped their record up to 6-2. The Bucs fall to 6-3. But looking at the stats, I mean, the quarterback position, it was not even close. On both ends, you have 2 of the top 6 or 7 overall quarterbacks in history. I mean, Drew Brees might be a top 5 to 7 quarterback. Tom Brady is arguably the best overall quarterback in NFL history. But their roles were reversed, if you will, on Sunday night. I mean, Drew Brees, 222 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, just a super efficient day from him. Heck, even fucking Jameis Winston got into the game. Taysom Hill threw a couple passes, 2 for 2, 48 yards. Jameis Winston had a 12-yard completion. All the Saints quarterbacks had a better QBR than what the hell that was from Tom Brady. I mean, 22 for 38, 209 passing yards, no touchdowns, 3 picks, an absolute stinker. Thank you, Bush. Thank God, Bush, you did not start Tom Brady in your lineup because you would have been duly disappointed. Glad that I told you to put Watson in. But anyways, sorry, rub the salt in the wound here. But anyways, let's talk about the Saints overall rushing. I mean, we saw Taysom Hill, 7 carries for 54 yards. Alvin Kamara, 9 for 40 and a touchdown, while also producing in the receiving game. Alvin Kamara had 5 catches for 9 yards. So overall, not a great efficient day for Alvin Kamara, but Alvin Kamara is going to catch 5 passes. Alvin Kamara is going to score a touchdown. Alvin Kamara is going to give you a decently productive fantasy football day, plain and simple. Talking about the other rushers of the team, Latavius Murray led them in carries, 10 for 39. Newton Washington actually got a few carries in this one, 5 for 9 yards. On the flip side, I mean, 5 total rushing attempts for the Bucs as a team, with one of them being a kneel. I mean, 5 attempts, 8 yards with a 7-yard long. I mean, Rojo just really had no chance to explode in this one. 3 carries for 9 yards. Not an efficient day, but definitely not enough volume to supplement enough a good fantasy football production. Kind of hard to do so when you're down 31-0 at half, but I'm going to let Bush deal with that one and not really talk much about that. Talking about the receiving game, a nice little bounce back from Michael Thomas, turned 6 targets into 5 catches, 51 receiving yards. Not crazy overall production that you expect from the overall wide receiver one from last year, but not a bad return to play against a tough matchup. Tough matchup because they didn't look like it on Sunday night, but a tough matchup overall against the Bucs secondary. We did see or this is Demetrius Harris. I said Demetrius Harris earlier. I probably just screwed that up. Anyways, 1 catch for 40 yards, a big bomb in this one. We did see Adam Troutman, a talented rookie tight end, my tight end one going into the process. 3 catches for 39 yards and a touchdown. Emmanuel Sanders also caught a touchdown on this one, 4 for 38. And Jared Cook, kind of a disappointing day, 2 catches for 30 yards on 3 targets and also had a fumble in this one. Main contributors overall, again, I already mentioned Kamara. Latavius Murray also had 2 catches for 3 yards. On the Bucs end, though, I mean, not Alvin Kamara. Mike Evans was the leading pass catcher for this team. 4 catches for 64 yards on 6 targets. We also saw Godwin coming back from injury. Kind of a stinky game, if you will. 3 catches, 41 yards, and 6 targets. Leonard Fournette led the team in catches, which is gross. If I told Bush that going into the game, he probably would have puked. But Leonard Fournette led the team with catches, 6 catches, 41 yards on 6 targets. Antonio Brown returned for play. First game since the midseason of last year where he had that 1 game stint with the Patriots. Ended up putting up 3 catches for 31 yards on 5 targets. We did see Ronald Jones catch 3 passes for 9 yards. And the stinkiest player of the day, Rob Gronkowski, turned 6 targets into 1 catch for 2 yards. But yeah, overall, just not a game that Bush wants to remember. We're going to have to forget this one soon. Probably going to hear more from him prior to Monday Night Football tomorrow, but today when you're watching it. But yeah, just I'll let him take it away if you guys want to hear more about that. But if you made it this far in the video, hope you enjoyed. Went through all the matchups this week. We're going to be looking forward to that quote unquote, or looking forward to that Monday night matchup between the Jets and the Patriots. But again, hope you enjoyed. Leave a like button. Comment down below what your thoughts on the overall week of football. And yeah, this is Danny. Going to see you again Monday night. Peace out, y'all.